Healers online workshop. We have a big turnout tonight, and this is the community that supports healers in building fantastic practices. Tonight we have a guest from British Columbia, Canada. Her name is Jackie Rioux. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you.
And a big welcome and thank you to my co-host, Ruth Kent.
Hey.
And our technical director, Denny Guyman. Welcome to all. We're coming to the end of the month, and this month it's the theme was setting goals, and we covered that in the last webinar. I hope you've had the chance to do some goals. You don't have to do the whole list, but if there's anything that struck you as important to set, we strongly encourage you to get that done. Also this month, we're dealing with the skeletal system. So if you want to run through your own skeletal system or that of your clients, this is a great opportunity to do that. But of course, no webinar starts without a joke. And this was something that I saw on my recent travels to the Maine coast. And it's a quote. "Not all those who wander are lost. Sometimes we are just looking for food." All right, something to think about there.
Actually, that's really very good. Because sometimes we don't know what it is exactly, but we're just looking to be nurtured. That I like that.
Oh, cool. I'm always researching for you, Ruth. I'm always on the lookout.
Well, it kind of goes like with my phrase, "My willingness is my wisdom." The willingness to move. Yes. Oh, cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. So our wonderful guest, Jackie, she is the owner of Ladybug Wellness. And not only is she an energy healer, she's also an entrepreneur. Now, she has a background in corporate life and has left that blessedly. And would you like to tell us a little bit about that, Jackie?
About the corporate life, I worked at the post office for 26 years.
Okay.
It was a very good job at the beginning to raise my kids. I ended up raising 4 kids by myself for a lot of years. So I'm very thankful for the job that way and that it gave me a good retirement. But corporate life, you know, I guess my healing journey really started in 2008. There was some things going on at work, and I had a breakdown. I flipped out on a supervisor. My union rep came to me afterwards and said that if I flip out on a supervisor, there was something really wrong with the system, because I usually handle things fairly well. But that breakdown was the start of a lot of things, kind of a blessing in disguise. I have always had an interest in psychology and human nature. And from that experience, I ended up taking 3 months off work and reevaluating life. And I had looked into psychology courses before, but at that time, I had to look into it again, and it worked out that I could take classes on a Monday evening. Now, being a mail carrier, that was one of the toughest days. And by the end of the day, I would come home and I would just be so exhausted. And I would pull myself together and go to class. And I was just so excited when I got out of class. I knew that I found my happy place. So I ended up taking Psych 101 and going on to Psych 102. And I decided, a little bucket list, I was going to go for a degree. Well, I thought that I was going to go for a bachelor's, but when you have teenagers at home and, you know, home life kind of upside down with teenagers and working full time and just a whole lot of other things going on, I ended up just doing a bachelor's, an Associate of Arts degree in psychology, which is 20 courses, but I did that over 10 years, 2 courses per semester, and I took a little break here and there. So I did get an Associate of Arts degree, and I actually graduated with that last year. But in the midst of
Congratulations.
all this, thank you. In the midst of all that, I also had a failed marriage back in 2004. And that was also a blessing in disguise. I'd taken some time to do my own healing. It was a very lonely time of life, but that rock bottom, that was, I like to say, it catapulted my personal growth. I learned a lot of things, and I kind of look back on that period of time. I think it's like, I describe it like a pinball machine, that once I took that first step, things just started falling into place. The different people that I met, the different courses that I ended up taking, just so many things came together. And at some point in the midst of all that, I was introduced to the TEC group, the emotion code group. And that's where I've met many of you.
But you were, at what point did you get certified in EC?
2011.
Okay.
When I started with the psychology courses, I also had an ulcer come up somewhere in that time, I think 2006 or so. And I was really, really sick for a year and a half. And being a mail carrier, that was not a very good experience at all. And it took a while before the doctor ran all sorts of tests and then finally figured out that I had H. pylori, which is ulcers. And yeah, there was times that I wanted to curl up and die. But yeah, there was a breakdown at work, and the courses with psychology. And in the midst of that, I met Dr. Franzi Ng. And through her, I took thought field therapy techniques. I met Rachel. I learned some Reiki through Rachel and through Franzi. And then I took a master class. I was not comfortable at all with my skills, and I was extremely shy. I was in Toastmasters for 3 years to try and get myself out of a shell. I had done modeling for a while. So you could get me out on a runway, but just don't talk to me. I was so shy and so naive through a lot of things, but all of these things come together. And yeah, I got certified in emotion code in 2011. And I was introduced to that actually through the masterclass that I took. And built up my skills and everything. And then it was 2011, I had decided on the name Ladybug Wellness, which is also interesting because I've now learned that theta state, when you are just in the midst of waking up and the midst of going to sleep. I had come home from work one afternoon in June 2011. I was extremely exhausted. I fell asleep for a little while. And when I woke up, I had the idea, Ladybug Wellness. So I texted a bunch of my friends and I says, well, what do you think of Ladybug Wellness for a business name? They're all like, oh my God, that suits you so much. And I'd had a little bit of a fascination with ladybugs. So it was a few months later that I met a certain lady that ended up being a mentor. For about 6 months, she took me under her wing and she tried to help me get comfortable with my skills. She taught me how to dowse. I had been taking courses and everything in the midst of this as well. So it was probably about 4 or 5 months after I chose the name Ladybug Wellness and went and got a business license, that this mentor, she had been telling me all along, you have a very strong energy. You're going to go far with all of your skills. Just hang in there, and trying to build me up and everything. And there was one time she just looked at me, she goes, it was no mistake that you got the ladybugs. And so what she explained to me was that apparently, I'm not sure all the explanation behind this, but what she had told me is that when Mother Mary's energy came to Earth, it was too strong for the Earth to handle, so it came in through the ladybugs. And that is why I got the ladybugs, because apparently I have a very strong energy.
All right.
Yeah. So ladybugs, they're empowerment, they're hope, red is a power color. They've just got a lot of symbolisms with ladybugs. And my logo also has forget-me-nots. And the reason behind that is several years back, 1990s, I had a particular friend who told me that I was like a forget-me-not flower, that when I meet people, I leave an impression, and it's forget-me-not. And so I brought that forward to my logo because with thought field therapy techniques, it's tapping on energy meridians. And in the training, it was explained that it disconnects the emotional charge to traumas. And that's what pretty much all energy work does, is disconnect the emotional charge. And that's behind emotion code as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't lose the memories, but you disconnect the emotional charge. So it's also forget-me-not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can look back without the emotion, without the, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well said. Very good. What else do you do beside energy healing? I know you have a few other little sidelines, right?
Well, altogether, it pretty much is energy healing. I retired from the post office back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
With the dowsing, I picked up from the TEC group because it's open enough to discuss other things. The TEC group and some of the people there and their suggestions and everything is the reason that I got into the balance procedure, theta healing, access bars, Raymond Grace techniques, and of course, Court of Atonement, which is kind of a second nature thing for me as well now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah.
What have you had any like really amazing results with clients that you could share? Anything come to mind?
Oh, tons of them.
Yeah. Give us an example.
Well, actually, just last night, I had a lady came. She brought her 9-year-old daughter, and she wanted to do a session, and she hasn't really done much energy work before. And she asked, well, you know, do you need her to focus on things? She was kind of, you know, how do you do this kind of thing? So I said, well, no, you can just, we'll see what comes up. And she says, well, do you need a whole lot of details? You know, do you need to tell me what's going on or whatever? And I said, no, actually, I don't. You know, I got her name, I can use birth date, and that's about all I need. And the fascinating things that started coming up were generational things that I explained to her that your DNA carries memories. And through all the things that were coming up on her, I was kind of curious what exactly is going on, because it was all under circadian rhythm, which is your sleep cycle. So she obviously had sleep issues. Her gastrin and some other stomach hormones were coming up. So I knew there was stomach issues. And when you have a lot of trauma, that affects your stomach shutting down as well. So I kind of put together that this little girl was having night terrors before they told me. So this lady was quite fascinated, and she wants to come back for her own work as well.
Great.
One thing that I've had a regular client, actually I've worked with her whole family now. A few years ago, this lady had called me. Her daughter is actually a Reiki master, but she doesn't live here. And apparently she had found my website wherever she was, I think in Japan. She travels all over. But she had told her mom, you need to go to somebody in Prince George. So her mom called me. She has a very strong accent. And all I really understood was that she had said she's got something itis, which I know is inflammation. Turns out she came for a Reiki session, and I also do a little bit of emotion code along with it. And so this was in February, a few years ago. Over 4 sessions in 2 months, she had done Reiki, and my healing room is right beside the bathroom. There's like 4 steps basically. And in an hour Reiki session, she had curled up in a ball in excruciating pain and ran to the bathroom 3 times within an hour. The 4th time that she came, she got all choked up, and she says, whatever you did last time, it really helped. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's wonderful. So we do a Reiki session, and she didn't get up and run this time. So afterwards, I'm like, what's going on here? She says, well, that's what I mean. She's gotten back into playing sports with her kids. I found out later she's actually a dance instructor. I don't know how she managed to do the things before she came to me, but they've ended up being regular clients. She just comes back once in a while, but it was bladder issues that she was having issues with, and it all cleared up.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How much of your clientele is a walk-in versus online?
Probably about 95% is online.
Okay, yeah.
I even have clients here in Prince George that are just busy. So they just set up an appointment with me and they go about doing their thing, and I just email them the results.
Okay. But for Reiki, obviously it's in person?
Yeah. I can send Reiki, but I don't, I kind of do Reiki along with everything else if I'm doing distance healing work. But as for Reiki itself, I don't feel it's kind of tangible to, tell a client that this is what I'm doing right now. So I just infuse it into everything else that I do.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. That's really impressive. Does anyone have any questions for Jackie? Brenda.
So I'd like to ask that invasive energy question. How would you deal then with something that is very stubborn, and anyone that has tried to help her so far has been inflicted with different symptoms to stop them from helping her? And it's the entity that has caused this. Like, I'm talking curses, courting, like courting to the guts to make the person sick. So there's been a couple, there's been a clairvoyant, and there's been myself trying to help this client.
Okay.
I've used Court of Atonement. I heard that you use that. So
yes.
Today I actually put her into the court.
Oh,
she hasn't come back because she's still processing from the last. And it actually wasn't until the following day that I started to put some pieces to the puzzle together. In that moment that she was here and I was treating her, giving her a session, I picked up on certain energies, but you know what I've learned through this group? I'm starting with the nervous system, right? And I'm working my way through. And of course, I'm releasing lots of entities. Yeah. But this girl has had the entity since she was 6. And her parents were going to commit her at one point, like Tune and Salsa, because she is seeing everything. She sees spirit. She sees fairies. She sees her guides. But I told her this is because they're protecting her.
How old is the person?
She's probably 30.
Wow. And
she's had this since she was 6 years of age. So it's a type of entity. I went into the kinesiology scan. It describes it as an entity of Dracula. Like, you have to actually invite it in, this type of invasive energy, or it's an energy that you feel you're deserving of. So it's the same, but so she was 6, something drastic. She's blocked it out. But at that age, she felt she was deserving of something. And she's actually at a very young age gave this entity a name. She's been aware of it. And she gives it like a weird name.
Brenda, in this, when she was a little girl, is her grandparents, her parents, or her, was there any elements of unforgiveness?
That's interesting. Unforgiveness. The thing that happened, so she's blocked this all out, whatever happened at 6 years of age. And I've only had one session with her.
I was in prayer and I kept having, like, over 3 months or something like that, individuals that were repeatedly coming with entities.
Okay.
I prayed and I said, you know, help me to know, you know, what the question is or what I am to ask.
Okay.
And he says, don't worry about the entity, have them forgive.
Ah, thank you.
Because
Thank you.
forgiveness was creating like a body portal to this attraction.
Yes, yes, yes,
That's
yes.
only one probably niche, but I've got shivers going up and down my body talking to you about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I talked to Carmen last night on the phone and she had the same thing going on. I go, who would you, you know, can you give me some advice? Have you dealt with this before? But what about this according to me and curses on me and this other person and
I
her
always say your
husband?
light is more powerful than any evil.
Okay.
If you start focusing on the evil, you put a foot in the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Focus
makes sense.
on your gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to share, Brenda. Actually, it's going to be the subject of the next webinar. So we're going to do a little preview of it right now. It's quite simple. The fact is the immune system generates the shielding.
Ah,
We often think of shielding as external to us.
yes.
I've got to put up a shield, and you think of it like a fence or you know, a bubble or something like that. But if you clear your own immune system and the immune system of the client properly, that will generate a shield that you will literally feel.
Okay.
Okay.
Bonus.
And the way to go about it is there's four immune systems.
Mm-hmm.
The physical one,
Mm-hmm.
which we describe, you know, all the organs and the glands and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also an emotional immune system
Mm-hmm.
that will keep us protected from things at an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
A mental immune system against negativity, negative thoughts, negative words. And the fourth one is a spiritual immune system. So they will all have a percentage calibration when you start.
Mm-hmm.
We can clear them all to 100%.
Cool.
When the four are at 100%, they will kick in together. You can check that, see if they're aligned, but usually it automatically aligns.
Yeah.
And you'll feel, or the client will feel, amazing, amazingly protected. That's the best word I can use.
This is very, very helpful. To think that this person has felt this way and that her parents wanted to commit her.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, a person that doesn't know about this stuff, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I have a couple different angles towards all this.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Go ahead.
So for myself, my story behind me is I had a major sexual trauma when I was 6. And I had different experiences before I was a teenager. Now, those traumas, one of the courses that I took, there was a book, Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. That was a recommended reading. And what that explains is that everything is a vibration, and everything, your emotions, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, and happiness, they all have a vibration 500 to 1,000. Shame and grief have got a vibration of 20 to 30. So when you have a lot of that kind of stuff, it brings your overall vibration down. Now, from body code, we understand that these entities, they can be evil entities or disembodied spirits, right?
Yeah.
When you have a lower vibration through all of this, I had attracted all sorts of nasty stuff that I was carrying through most of my life, up until I started to learn about this and started raising my own vibration through my own healing work. So that's one aspect to look at. Now, with Court of Atonement, well, actually, I should mention, when we were actually on the cruise, Dr. Brad, in one of the training, had mentioned about how a lot of times we've learned just to banish these evil spirits and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And disembodied spirits and stuff. But when we have attracted them to us, whether that was intentional or not, it was still somewhat of an invitation. And they have been brought in, and they have somehow, in some capacity, served us. Okay, so the approach that Dr. Brad had suggested is to thank them for their service and then let them go.
Yeah.
Now, to bring in Court of Atonement with that, they're unhappy. They've got unfinished business. So putting them into a full Court of Atonement for unfinished business, there's the idea too that they can be stuck, that they, if they've had some sort of a poor death, like a suicide or a murder or something like that,
Earthbound.
or something sudden,
Yeah.
they may be stuck and not fully transitioned.
Yeah.
Now, I've had a personal experience with that a year ago. My son-in-law was killed in a motorcycle accident. I was a wreck for a couple days, but I kept working on him the entire time. And I've had intuitive friends bring me messages from him since then, a few different incidences. And every one of them has told me thank you from him, that he transitioned quickly because of all the work that I had done that night.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I've had another strange experience. A year ago, with Court of Atonement, Amy Jo and I were working with someone and clearing their name. And your name can carry lots of different energies, and that's a thing with, so we were doing a name clearing, and this one particular lady, her last name was not clearing whatsoever. And so we kind of tuned in to find out what was going on there. And what came up was genocide. And what we figured out is that many years before, they had tried to wipe out her whole generation and her last name. So her last name was carrying that energy. So we cleared that. And because it was a genocide, that's a war thing, in the Court of Atonement, Amy Jo had put out a war crimes and war victims protocols, which basically takes the war crimes and takes it off the people who were ordered to kill, takes that guilt off of them and puts it where it was supposed to be put, for the person who ordered any killings, and also puts them into a sense of capital punishment, so that we're supposed to have free will, but in cases like that, if it's for the highest and best, that their free will to ever commit those kind of crimes again is taken away. And so that had happened with Amy Jo, and it was not too long after that I was working with a client, and the genocide thing came up on this person. And I thought that was kind of interesting, because this was someone that I knew personally for quite a while. And what he explained is that his last name, they had changed the spelling when they came over to North America, because somewhere back, just a couple generations back, there was an uncle that was the right-hand man of Hitler, and a lot of killings and deaths and everything there. So yes, that's how the genocide came up on him, and they had tried to, they had changed his name in order to try and get rid of that, but of course the name still carries the energy. So we had cleared that. So anyway, that night, my son was in camp, my daughter was not home, it was me and the cat. I had gotten up about 3 o'clock in the morning to go for a little pee run. I came back into my room and I didn't feel like I was alone. And I'm trying not to freak out, because I'm not really comfortable with that kind of thing, but I have enough friends that have those kind of experiences that I tried to calm myself down. I said, who is there and what do you want? And I got the name Carl. My grandfather's name is Carl. I've got a German heritage. There's a lot of Carls. And what I needed was the war crimes and war victims protocols. As soon as I did that, the energy cleared and I was able to sleep. So with entities, now I've also realized that I've had some experiences in my life. Breaking down on the side of the highway last year, I went down to go visit Amy Jo in the States, traveling by myself. And my van broke down on the side of the highway, and I was seriously looking for banjos. It was just a one street town. And the mechanic that I got lined up with the roadside assistance had taken me to the shop. I ended up staying there overnight. And the mechanic that I had, he was an absolute jerk. He was awful. I was just so mad. And so I ended up getting towed to a different mechanic, a town over. They got me on the road right away. And I'm thinking, why did I end up with that mechanic? Turns out when I calmed down and asked what was going on, that mechanic needed healing. So I was put in that position to recognize that I needed to do something. So I did a bunch of Court of Atonement for this guy, because with Court of Atonement, we don't need their permission. They don't need to know about it. I just dealt with it, and off I went, and it all cleared. Now, if you've got an entity attached to a person, Court of Atonement is wonderful for that, to get them to go and everything. Just find out what they need. You maybe don't even need to ask what they need. Just put them in a full Court of Atonement for whatever they need. And requesting assistance for transcendence is the speed dial Court of Atonement that you can only use on someone that has passed. So Eddie Masters is another fellow that I've been connected with through Brenda Lainoff, and he's done training underneath Raymond Grace. So there's Raymond Grace techniques to also deal with entities, and he seems to be pretty good at that, and I've learned a couple things. And basically it really is putting the person into a full Court of Atonement, or do body code clearing or whatever it is to find what the imbalances are that is attracting the entities, to release them that way. And you can also do emotion code and Court of Atonement clearing on the house and any kind of furniture. If you have your secondhand furniture, all those kind of things that can attract entities and, imbalances that can affect us.
Of course, that's all. Have you dealt with any portals lately?
Not particularly. I have asked a few times, and there's a couple different trains of thought on that. Some people say close them off completely. And what I've gotten from Amy Jo with Court of Atonement, she promotes moving the portal outside to a more appropriate location and programming it so that only those from the light can come in, but anyone can leave.
I always ask that as well. Does it need to be closed? Does it need to be removed? Or is it to be left? Anyway, I do ask those questions as well. And it's amazing up in the area that I live in, Haliburton, I've closed a lot of them.
Well, you can, an address, a cemetery, a psych institution, hospitals.
Yeah.
I've put the address and the property into full Courts of Atonement.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. And they wonder how I do it at a distance.
Yeah, there's lots of interesting stories with distance.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to say I'm still dealing with portals that open up in this house quite often, actually. It's kind of ongoing. And it's always my cat who notifies me that, hey, there's a portal opened. You need to do something.
Yeah. Did you try just moving it?
I did not. No, I'll have to do that.
So try to move it. At one point in my basement, I've had a few, but the last one I needed to just move it to the garden. Outside in the back, move it to the garden. But that's when it said to move it, I said, oh, I never thought to even ask that question.
No, right. Well, and I've closed them before, so I don't think it's the same portal reopening, because I asked to close it completely and permanently with the help of all the archangels. Any assistance and guidance?
But you can ask the question too, is it the same one? Because actually when I close them for clients, I go back the next day and I ask, because sometimes it is stubborn.
Yeah.
And it will open up and then I'll just close it again. And it's usually just a couple times at the most that I would have to. But
I would ask why your house is attracting them.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's related to what happened in this valley. I live in a valley 150 years ago with the natives and down by the river and a lot of slaughtering and stuff like that. So maybe Courts of Atonement would help in that.
Yep.
In that particular case.
Just mention that incident and all of the souls that lost their lives or anyone that was involved in those slaughterings, to whether they were murderers or the victims, to put them into full Courts of Atonement to sort out their differences.
Yeah. And I do find asking for the Sentinel Angels helps as well.
Yeah.
That usually settles, but for a time, and then it kind of, it's just this ongoing cycle. It's like getting tired of it.
Always what's attracting it.
Yeah. Thank you.
There's a question here. Where do I learn more about the Court of Atonement?
Yes, that's it. That is how you write it. And if you go into my website at ladybugwellness.ca, I actually have a page in my website that is particularly for ego. Because 2 years ago, I was just scrolling through some of my practitioner forums that I scroll through, pick up all sorts of new techniques and things to try. And that was what my attitude was. I had found this full Court of Atonement, or it was called just Court of Atonement. It was a 12-page booklet that I downloaded and read through it. Seemed interesting. There was a couple little prayer intentions in there. So I always guinea pig my kids. And then 5 days later, my daughter messages me and asked if I did some sort of relationship clearing stuff on her because a boyfriend from 20 years before came out of the woodwork and apologized for everything he did back then.
Wow.
And then the next day she had her largest one transaction sale at work. And a week later, her hubby quit drinking cold turkey. So, and then I ended up sharing it in the TEC group and it exploded from there. And that was a funny thing too, because I was crawling into bed one night, it was about 10:30, and my intuition went off to go post that screenshot into the TEC group. And so I was just going to go to sleep and I didn't figure I was going to get any sleep. So I got up, went to the computer, posted it in the group, and finally went to bed. And on the other end of it, Amy Jo, I had never met her in my life. And she had written this Court of Atonement book 3 months before. She had sold 14 copies of it at $5 each. And that night when she was crawling into bed, she thought, well, if this is supposed to be big, prove it. So we've got a little joke between us that her angels came over and bugged me to get out of bed. So, so there's more of that in my website. There is a particular, she's now got 2 books. She's in 100 countries. The 2 books, there's, actually, this is the first book. It's, the Court of Atonement, Healing Your Family Tree. And the second one is more about taking it through your family lineage. And she is supposed to be releasing a book any day now. Any one of us that were on the spiritual apologizing class a week and a half ago, we got access to buy the book early. And that one, it's, how do I even describe it? It breaks down everything with the Court of Atonement and into apologizing, and it was absolutely amazing. I read through it, I did it all, and it just clears your energy. Like whatever you can come up with, it's gone.
There's hardly a time that I do not use the Court of Atonement with my client.
I use it to open and close my sessions and just to clear everything. One other thing I was going to mention with the levels of being, another thing that we learned, if your client is not really responding to things, with body code, we can have disconnections, right?
Yeah.
With Court of Atonement, what we have found is you can ask, is your client fully in their body?
Oh, I did ask that.
And you get a yes.
Yeah.
But because we have a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual levels, is your client fully inside their physical body? And to make sure that their spirit, their soul, their conscious mind, subconscious mind, and body are all within their physical body. And boy, does that make a difference.
That's
Thank you. That's a great point.
similar to the immune system too. That works.
Yes.
Yeah. Similar to
And also in body code, we know too, some of those disconnections, there's something in there that if there's more than a 30% disconnection, that when you get them all fully back in their body, that they could get symptoms of a cold because all of a sudden they're able to deal with everything.
Yeah.
So I kind of bypass that and keep asking that they process with grace and ease.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Wow, that's cool. Any other questions for Jackie?
Jackie, are you an author?
Oh, yes, I am. I knew you were going to bring that one up. There we go. This book 2 years ago, Ruth is in, you're in this one too, aren't you, right? Yeah, okay. So Ruth is in this one. There's 31 different authors. And I think many of us are in the TEC group. There's Angela, Hannah's in here, Rachel's in here. So Rachel and me, and there's another lady here in Prince George, Melanie Nulette. All three of us are in that book. So our story is in there, and I've had a lot of interesting things in my life, and so many people over my life is, oh, you should write a book. And I still think I should write a book about all the road trip adventures with my kids, because I think that's friggin' hilarious. But as for the crappy stuff and how I got over that, that's all in my story in there.
How do we find that book?
I think it's still available on Amazon. You can,
Okay.
and I've got a page on my website that has got an interview. I got a 20-minute interview on there as well. And there's a tips book that you can download. But I've got all those links. That's all on the page on my website.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, when you started out your business,
Yeah.
what is one thing that you would say to somebody now? Make sure you do this. What is one nugget that you know, was it a seed in your heart, a mindset, a focus? Was it a belief, or was it a technique that you did on a daily basis? What is one thing that you would leave as a nugget? Because you've grown your business. You work, you know, quite a bit on referral, I would assume.
Yeah. I think the first thing that's coming to mind is build your confidence. I really was not comfortable with my skills. It kind of scared me because it really is powerful work. I mean, there's things that happen. I see miracles before my eyes all the time. But I was not comfortable with it. And I'm really thankful for a few mentors that I had in my life that helped me along in building my own confidence and realizing, and actually Chris, back in 2016, I did a business clearing with Chris. And one of the things that stood out in that, he had said that I had a saboteur energy of a blindfold out of jealousy from a competitor. And as soon as he told me that, I knew exactly what it was. There was a certain lady, she's a wonderful lady and she means well, but we had a little gathering, some practitioners get together, and we were clearing on stuff. And my mentor had shown me just how to douse and clear some things, and I, you know, doing emotion code or whatever I was doing. And I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. I just knew that I was clearing stuff and I knew it was effective. But this lady asked me, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, clearing stuff. And she says, well, do you know what you're clearing? And I'm like, well, not exactly. I just know that it's working, and I'm leaving it to basic my angels or whoever the higher power is to know that they are doing the work. I'm just facilitating, right? And she made a very snide comment that hurt my feelings, and I know that that held me back for a very long time. I'm not shocked by anything anymore, but I'm always fascinated.
Mhm.
And there's so many things that come up that are, oh, that's interesting. And I know that there's times when I'm working with a client, you know, there's times that we do focus on certain things, you know, if they've got a particular issue that they want to work on. But as a first-time client, a lot of times, you know, I don't ask for details. I just let things come up. And I find that I know I was working with one particular lady. I think a lot of us have got this book, The Healing Questions Guide. A client, and you know, we'd have a session once a week or whatever, and I got to know more things with her the more I worked with her. But one particular session in the beginning, she had something come up in that book, and the way that I've used that book is just to douse what page, what question, and you can go according to the actual ailment. Well, the first question that came up on her was under the ringing in the ears. And we did a few more things and cleared some more things, and we went back to the book again, and it turned out it was right again under ringing in the ears. And I said, well, that's interesting. Both questions came up under the same thing. And she goes, oh, that was actually one of the issues I was going to mention to you. So it comes up anyway.
What do you know? So to recap, Jackie, your website is ladybugwellness.ca.
Yes, ladybugwellness.ca. When you go in there, I do have the emotion code, the Reiki, thought field therapy in the forefront of it. Some of my business stuff that I do. On
Your
the
book?
About Me page.
Your book also?
Pardon me?
Your book?
Yeah, there's. I think it was Janet Riganti that commented that my website is kind of like an online biography as well. Everything that has ever helped me is in there, and I've actually had a website since 1998. I was a teen mom. I got divorced. I had a lot of things that I went through, and I used to save little quotes and sayings, and I kept them all in a duotang back before we had the internet. And I would lend this book to some of my friends because who are they going to come to talk to, right? So I lend them my book, and then I had a horrible time always getting it back. So when the internet came along, I put it all into a website. It was Yahoo GeoCities. And after a few years, they decided to close it down. I thought, oh, well, I'll just let my website go. And then I found out my friends didn't like that idea. So I ended up putting it into an actual website with my own domain. And when I got into Ladybug Wellness, I put that on the forefront. So Jackie's Compilations is the back end of it. And it's still got resources and book suggestions and just all sorts of anything. Everything that has ever helped me in my life is in there.
That's fantastic. Great. Thank you, Jackie. It's really been amazing. It's been a pleasure. And it was a lot of fun to meet you on the cruise last year. And
we'll see you again next year.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's what I'm going to talk about now. They've just announced that in 2020, there will be an Alaskan cruise with the same cast of characters, Dr. Nelson and his wonderful group, and everybody that wants to join. I believe spouses are welcome, and children, if would be. There were certainly some kids on the cruise, right? Some of the children. So that's exciting. That'll be next August, and I'm definitely going, and I'm inviting the HOW members also to show up because we can spend some time together as a group. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Jackie.
I wanted to add one more thing.
Yes, sure.
When you opened up with looking for the food, that's so appropriate for me. I've always told my friends, if you ever lose me, just look for the food.
The aromas of food cooking. Cool. Okay, so the next webinar, as you got a little preview of it tonight, it's going to be on the connection between the immune system and shielding, the things to look for. And I will tell you that I worked on myself and a few people already, and it's something that you really feel. Quite excited about that. That'll be November 12th. And we have the mastermind group, which will follow the webinar in 5 minutes. And I'd like to ask Ruth to close with a blessing, please.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you so for Jackie, for her heart, her wisdom, her love, and for the amazing resource and the energy that she has shared with all of us. Thank you for this community, for all of you coming together and creating this amazing light of love and the service that you are to each other as well as to the world. May you all go safely and in peace and in love going forward. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.